Good morning. My name's Kristen. I'm with the Backyard Bard, and this morning, together with Rob Turnbull, we are presenting Esther 5 and 6. On the morning of the third day, Esther put on her royal robes. And she went and stood in the king's inner courtyard, in front of the king's hall. The king was sitting on his throne, facing the entrance. And when he saw Queen Esther, he was pleased with her, and he extended the golden sceptre towards her. Queen Esther came forward and touched the tip of the sceptre. The king said, "Esther, what is your request? It shall be granted. What is your petition? It shall be given you. Up to half the kingdom, it shall be given to you." And Esther replied, "If it pleases the king, I would ask the king and Haman come together today to a banquet that I have prepared for them." The king summoned Haman, and together they went to a banquet that Esther had prepared. As they were drinking wine, the king again asked Esther, "So Esther, what is your request? Up to half the kingdom, it shall be given to you." And Esther replied, "My petition and my request is this, that if I have found favour with the king, and if I am pleasing to him, and if it pleases him to grant my petition and fulfil my request, I ask that the king, together with Haman, come today and tomorrow to a banquet that I have prepared for them."
So, Haman left that day happy and delighted in spirit. But when he saw Mordecai sitting at the king's gate, who neither rose nor showed any fear before him, he was filled with rage against Mordecai. But having restrained himself, he went home and called his wife Zeresh and his friends to him, and he boasted about his great wealth and his many sons, and about the great honours that the king had bestowed upon him, and how he had elevated him above all the other nobles and officials. And that's not all, Haman added. "I'm the only one that Queen Esther invited to accompany the king to the banquet she held. And I'm the only one that she invited to her banquet tomorrow evening. But this gives me no satisfaction as long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate."
His advisors and his wife Zeresh said to him, "Have a pole set up 75 feet high, and ask the king in the morning to have Mordecai impaled on it, and then go to the banquet with the king and enjoy yourself."
The suggestion delighted Haman, and he had the pole set up. Well, that night, the king couldn't sleep, and so he ordered that the attendants bring the book of the Chronicles, the record of his reign, to be brought in and read to him. And in it was found that Mordecai had exposed Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, who had conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. So the king asked, "What honor and recognition has been given to Mordecai for this?" The attendants replied, "Nothing has been given to him." So the king said, "Well, who is in the court?" And just then, Haman had entered the king's outer court to speak with the king about impaling Mordecai on the pole that he had set up. The attendant said, "Well, Haman is in the court." The king said, bring him in. And so the king asked Haman, what should be done for the man the king delights to honor? And Haman, he thought to himself, who is there that the king would rather honor than me? And so he said to the king, for the man that the king would delight to honor, let a robe be brought, one that the king has worn, and a horse, one that the king has ridden, one with a royal crest on its head. And let the robe and the horse be entrusted to one of the king's most noble princes. And let them robe the man that the king delights to honor and lead him on horseback through the city streets, proclaiming before him, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Well, the king said, go at once and do just as you have said. For Mordecai, the Jew, who sits at the king's gate, do not neglect anything of what you have suggested. And so, Haman he went and he took the robe and the horse, and he robed Mordecai, and he led him on horseback through the city streets, proclaiming before him, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Well, afterwards, Mordecai returned to the king's gate. But Haman ran home with his head covered in grief, and he called his wife and his advisors to him and told them everything that had happened to him.
His wife Zeresh and his advisors said, since Mordecai, before whom your downfall has started, is of Jewish origin, you cannot stand against him. You will surely come to ruin.
Just then, the king's attendants hurried in and rushed Haman off to the banquet that Esther had prepared, which is where we'll pick up the story tomorrow morning.